Is there any additions to the agenda? Hearing none, will somebody make a motion to approve the agenda as presented? Do you have a seconder? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Contrary, nay. Thank you, gentlemen. I'm going to bypass the warden's remarks and we'll move to presentations. We have a public hearing on a request by Walter Spinney to rezone lands. You ready, Brad? Okay.
Thank you. This is a public hearing for council to determine their decision on a request of Walter I. Spinney Jr. His request is to rezone his lands on the Camoes Hill Road in Melbourne from rural development to rural commercial for the purposes of establishing a commercial campground and cottages. This application was dealt with by the Planning Committee at a meeting on November 18th. The planning report prepared by myself was presented by our Development Officer, Roger Devine. I was unable to attend that Planning Advisory Committee meeting, and Roger stood in my stead and presented the report. The Planning Committee went through the report and the application and made a recommendation to Council to proceed to a public hearing, recommending that Council approve the amendment. I'll just briefly run through the proposal. The applicant is proposing to develop and operate a commercial campground facility to provide overnight camping for tenters, camper trailers, and recreational vehicle campers during the camping season from May through October. The site is proposed to be developed with a series of camping roads, gravel camping roads, with individual campsites constructed on both sides of the small camp roads. The roads are to be accessed from the main campground road, which runs from the public highway, Camoes Hill Road, to the lakeshore area in the eastern side of the property. Just to review the property itself, it's property PID 901-88590 of the Nova Scotia Property Records Database. That's the identification number. Every property has an identification number, and that's the official identification number of this property. It's situated on the northeast side of Camoes Hill Road in Melbourne. It's a 50-acre property, has approximately 1,340 feet of frontage along the Camoes Hill Road. It extends eastward to Duns Lake with approximately 2,200 feet of frontage along Duns Lake. The depth of the property from the public road to the lake is approximately 1,540 feet. And as I mentioned, it's approximately 50 acres in total. There's a cleared field with shrubs of approximately 5 acres in area, which borders the Camoes Hill Road at the campground entrance. The remainder of the site is generally wooded, except for a half-acre cleared area at the lakeshore itself, the Duns Lake lakeshore. The property slopes gently from west to east, with a total elevation drop from the public road to the lake of approximately 33 feet. There's a large acreage, 56-acre residential property which abuts the subject property to the north, and the existing residence on that property is accessed actually from the Melbourne Road, not the Camoes Hill Road. The residence itself is situated approximately 410 feet from the property boundary, their common property boundary, and the residential land is treed between the residence and the subject property boundary. A single large vacant property of 25 acres abuts the subject property to the south. So it's bounded by the Camoes Hill Road, Duns Lake, to the north a residential property, and to the south a vacant property.
Excuse me, that property to the south is mine too.
Oh, okay.
I own that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it is a vacant property.
Yeah. Just so-
Yeah. Mr. Spinney here just advised me that he actually owns the subject property to the south as well. You got me lost there, Walter.
No, sorry.
That's quite all right. So the subject, there are a total of 5 residences along the west side of the Camoes Hill Road along the 1,340 feet of road frontage. Driveway entrances of 2 of the residences, civic numbers 78 and 84, are situated in the proximity of the driveway access entrance to the campground. The driveway entrance to the residence situated north of the campground serves civic number 78. The residence itself is actually situated 738 feet from the public road, so it's set well back from the public road. The driveway entrance to the civic number 84 is situated in the northwestern corner of that residential property, opposite the campground entrance. However, the residence itself is situated approximately 164 feet south of that driveway entrance. So the driveway entrance to the campground is not directly facing the residential property, the residence on the other side of the road. There's an offset there of approximately 164 feet. The proposal, as I mentioned earlier, is to operate the commercial campground to provide the overnight camping during the camping season from May through October. There are proposed 20 sites which will provide electrical service and water service, and 40 sites with water service, and 60 full-service campsites offering sewer, water, and electrical service. All of these campsites aren't intended to be constructed all at the same time. It will be done in phases with a number the first year, and then hopefully with the success of the business, it will expand. But those numbers are the intended full proposal. All campsites are proposed to be a minimum of 2,400 square feet or larger in area, and also Wi-Fi service is also proposed for some of those sites. The campsite roads themselves, which provide access to the campsites, are intended to be one-way traffic roads. There's a proposed campground office administration building and a combination laundry, washroom, and shower facility building proposed to be constructed on the main campground access road, approximately 400 feet from the public road. The exact location of the buildings wasn't determined in part because there are on-site sewage disposal systems which are intended to be installed, and of course water doesn't run uphill, so you have to position your septic fields, and then your buildings of course are somewhat determined, their position is somewhat determined by where exactly the on-site sewage disposal systems are proposed. There's a total of 5 on-site sewage disposal systems intended to serve the various campground areas and campground buildings and serviced campsites. There's intended to be a trench system which would contain the buried sewer lines, water lines, and electrical lines. There's also a proposed sewage dumping station for recreational vehicles along the main campground road near the entrance to the campground to provide sewer services to recreational vehicle clients. There's an existing dug well in the northwest area of the property, which is proposed to be upgraded, and a second drilled well, if necessary, is proposed in the area of the campground office and laundry buildings to provide water service to the campground buildings and individual campsites. Additional water wells are proposed in proximity to campsite areas if necessary to meet the water service requirements. A recreation area for the campground guests is proposed at the lakeshore area, Duns Lakes lakeshore area, with waterfront access and a floating wharf facility. There's a grassed open field and picnic tables area will also be provided in this recreation area. A walking trail is proposed through the southern portion of the property, extending from the lake shore to the main campground area on the western side of the property. The municipal planning strategy and land use bylaw recognize that in the rural area, commercial developments are proposed to be accommodated, providing the criteria for meeting all of the requirements of the bylaw are met. I've reviewed the various requirements of the bylaws, and this site meets all of the requirements of all of the policies for commercial uses and all of the bylaw requirements. The municipal planning strategy and land use bylaw also require a review of the effects that the proposed development will have on the surrounding land uses. And in this area, as I mentioned, it's a rural area, and there's, the development itself will consist of campsites largely remote from the main road. The only buildings that are proposed are the 2 office buildings and laundry shower facilities, which are small, single-story buildings in keeping with the scale of the surrounding buildings. So there's a fair distance between any structures of any magnitude and the existing residences. Also, camping it's a family activity. It's generally the campers that would arrive and depart from the site would likely do that during daylight hours, especially in the summertime. So it's not a high traffic volume area, and headlight glare that there may be, from vehicles coming to the site and exiting the site would be minimal, as it would be largely during daylight hours. So from my review of all of the requirements of the planning strategy and land use bylaw, I did recommend to the council that where this operation meets all of the requirements, that it would be appropriate to rezone the property from rural development to rural commercial to accommodate Mr. Spinney's commercial campground proposal.
Thank you, Brad. Did you receive any correspondence, or Liz, did you receive any after the public notice?
No, there was no contact with my office with any requirement or any questions about the proposal.
I see some public here. Does anybody in the gallery, the public, wish to speak to this? Anybody?
The only question that I would have is, when the hunting season comes upon in September for goose hunting, what is the buffer or the distance you have to be from the campground to go hunting?
Boy, that's a very good question. I must confess I don't know the Department of Natural Resources requirements. Mr. Dares, would you perhaps speak?
I do.
Okay.
It's 400 yards from the property line with a rifle and 200 with a shotgun facing away. Yeah, it's the same as your house, except your house is from your house, where it's a commercial property, it's from the boundary lines. From my property line.
From the boundary line of the campground, you would have to be those
No,
distances.
from the campground itself. It's not measured like a house. A house is measured from the house. So legally, you're not allowed to hunt from your house, but people do it. It's just the way it is.
So,
But from the property line of any commercial, same with this building right here, it's the same criteria.
so those setback distances are not from the structure of the building, but
No.
from the property boundary line.
From the property boundary line.
Right. Okay. I guess, did that answer the question?
It does mine. That kind of puts me right under that hunting season. Because I own the north side, which is 400 yards.
1,200 feet approximately.
That there and just taxes go up because of the business, or will it go down?
We talked to real estate agents and our property value will go down. According to the real estate agent that I spoke to.
Okay.
As far as tax assessment, it may be a different story.
That's the only question.
Okay. Can anybody address the assessment issue? Not tonight. I will say that council will make a decision tonight whether to move with this or not. If they move forward with it, there is still an appeal process afterwards. That if that was a question that you had in mind, that then I guess we'd have to get the proper information that would be brought out at that time. I'm not sure that we can answer that here tonight, Brad.
No, the property assessment values are something that's done by the Property Valuation Services Commission. and they continually review all properties in the municipality, or all properties in Nova Scotia for that matter. And so when any changes take place, I suppose property values rise and fall. I'm not aware of examples of property values that are reduced or fall as a result of campground developments, but I don't have any hard and cold facts to speak further to that.
Okay. Any other concerns from the audience? Your two concerns were hunting and your property value. Okay.
Yes.
Any questions of council for Mr. Fulton or anybody in the gallery? Hear none? Go ahead, John.
I take it this is the time that we move forward with a motion, so I'm going to put it on the floor for discussion purposes, provided someone wants to second the motion. So I move that we rezone the lands of Walter Spinney, PID number 901-885-90 from rural development to rural commercial.
Okay, you have a motion and it's been seconded. Any further discussion from council? Hearing none. Question being called. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Contrary, nay. Thank you. I will add that, so that means that we will move ahead and rezone the lands, but if there is an appeal process, for anybody that's not happy. Yeah, Brad, would you go through that
Right.
process for him?
Yes, the council is required to publish a notice in the Vanguard of their decision this evening. When that notice is published, from the date the notice is published, there's a 14-day appeal period, and any individual, it has to be an affected individual, that's determined by the Utility Review Board, but can file an appeal with the Nova Scotia Utility and Review Board within that 14-day appeal period. If there's an appeal, then the board holds an appeal, and the board has the authority to either uphold council's decision or to reverse council's decision, depending on the results of the appeal.
Thank you, Brad. Okay. Thank you for coming in.
Okay.
And thank you to the public, and thank you for bringing forth our concerns. I'm not sure if you're happy with the decision or not, but there is, like, as I mentioned, there is an appeal process. So, Trevor?
I'd just like to thank Mr. Spinney for agreeing to move forward with the development and provide some much needed development in Municipality District of Yarmouth. So thank you.
Moving, does Brad have another item? Okay, I'm sorry. Which one is it? What number?
Brad can speak to it, but there will be a change in the company that we're dealing with that will impact the timeline.
Thank you. Yes. Last evening there was a Planning Advisory Committee meeting, and at that meeting it was a public information meeting on a proposed development agreement with Red Ocean Incorporated to develop a land-based closed containment aquaculture facility at the Hebron Industrial Park. The committee reviewed the application and reviewed the development agreement and passed a motion to recommend to council the adoption of that development agreement. I received an email this afternoon from the agent for the owner. Richard LeBlanc is the agent, and the owner is Mr. Jason Lee. Apparently, Mr. Lee has been advised by his lawyer and his accountant that it would be more appropriate to develop a numbered Nova Scotia company and have that company make the application for the development agreement or purchase the land. It's a requirement of the Municipal Government Act that a development agreement be made with the owner of a property. So if the technical owner is a numbered company, then the council would enter into the agreement, a development agreement with that owner of the property, i.e. the numbered company. So I know that I believe the chairman of the planning committee was prepared to bring a motion forward to council this evening with that recommendation. However, I would suggest that that wouldn't be appropriate, as the development agreement cannot be with a company that doesn't own the land. So it was a business decision. I would, albeit a late breaking business decision on the part of the owner. I see no problems with this issue, except that we will have to redraft the development agreement with the proper owner, because you can't enter a development agreement with someone who, it has to be the owner of the property. So I contacted the Office of the Municipal Solicitor, but apparently he is away and unavailable. But I know from the Municipal Government Act, you must enter a development agreement with a property owner. So with all due respect, I believe the motion that was going to go forward this evening would have to be delayed until such time as the changes were made to the development agreement. But I will be conferring with the municipal solicitor and the developer upon the solicitor's return. I believe he's out of province actually right now. So.
Okay, thank you. Any questions of Brad before he leaves? Steve?
Yeah.
I guess, I understand that for tax implications and possibly for liability implications, holding the asset in a numbered company can be a preferred path. Now, we entered into a land transaction with the developer. I'm assuming the individual, not the numbered company. So just for completeness, is that transaction, is it fait accompli now, so that the developer will be looking at transitioning the asset from his person to the numbered company, or is he going to want to come back and execute the land transaction with the numbered company?
Well, I'm not privy.
I'm sure you can't answer
Yeah, I'm not privy to that.
Just
that,
to be aware that may come up, and maybe Greg Shea should be brought in the loop on that.
No, I believe Mr. Shea is certainly aware of I had a conversation with him today, and basically, we understand that, our concern is that this evening, should council have passed that motion, then it would be awkward because there would be a motion on file that would have to be rescinded, etc. I see this as simply a late-breaking business development that, wasn't known by the municipality until today. So, it's the same individual, it's the same party, it's the same development. The only thing that's changing is the actual business structure of the developer. So I see no reason, for any amount of concern, really. But it's a technicality that we would have to straighten out, and we would want to record the actual owner of the property. If it's the numbered company that owns the property, then that company is who the council must make the development agreement with.
I guess the question relevant to you then would be, in the event something goes wrong, obviously the development agreement is put in place as a protective mechanism for us. Are there any differences in, say, the teeth of a development agreement as it pertains to an individual versus a numbered company?
No.
Same.
The development agreement runs with the land, and so once it's registered in the land registration office, should the property be transferred from one owner to another, the new owner has to adhere and abide by the development agreement. So regardless of if it's an individual or a company or whomever, the development agreement is with the owner of that property and the municipality.
I understand. Yeah. I'm asking about the. I'm asking about if there's a breach, right? And
if
we have to pursue reparations from a numbered company or from an individual. Is there a difference?
I believe the process would be the same. Ultimately, I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but I would assume that, the legal responsibility of the owner, be it if it's a numbered company, would be the directors of the company, the shareholders or whomever, would be responsible.
Maybe we want to get that question answered. The only reason I throw that out there is that, the common tactic is that you do a transaction with a numbered company so that the only liability are the assets of the numbered company. If the assets of the numbered company are kept artificially low as a way to mitigate liability, then it impacts our ability to get effective reparation in the off chance something goes south, right? So that might be outside the scope of your expertise, but I would just want to maybe get that question to Greg Shea and maybe to the lawyer. So I don't know who to direct my comments to, maybe better to Ken, to just get an answer to that question as to what the implication is for the deal with a numbered company versus an individual.
Just to be clear, you're just wondering, and it's probably more of a legal question
Yeah.
than anything else. Is the difference between dealing with an individual and a numbered company? Obviously, there's a reason they do the numbered company thing.
Right.
And but that's not unlike any business that would be trying to start a venture. Probably would probably set up a numbered company.
Yeah. For our own edification.
But just so that we're aware of the differences,
Exactly.
perhaps we could pose that question to our solicitor, and maybe he could bring that back to us.
Yeah. Thank you.
I guess my question was along the same point that the deputy warden was trying to make. If regardless whether it's a name company or a numbered company, it still has to be owned by somebody or a group, and it would be in the registry of joint stocks. So those are some interesting questions that the deputy warden brought up about in that regard, and I'd be kind of interested to ask a lawyer myself. It's really good to know, because it was always my belief or interpretation that a company, whether it's named or numbered, is still owned by somebody. Now, is this numbered company going to be owned by somebody else or a partner or 2 or 3 partners? And that's what I'm kind of curious about. So, yeah, absolutely. So I guess this will not be coming forward into my planning advisory committee report. Thanks.
I have one question, Brad, and
Yes.
maybe you answered it and I missed it. So the process last night with the PAC, does that have to be repeated?
Well, that will be a question that I would pose again to the municipal solicitor.
Okay.
The essential section of the Municipal Government Act is the public hearing that council must hold. So the committee work that was done is simply by an advisory committee, and it was a public information meeting, and none of the facts, none of the facts of the application have changed at all. It's simply the entity that is going to be purchasing the property, and that would be responsible legally as a signatory to the development agreement. But the facts of the essential elements of the development agreement haven't changed at all. So I would suspect, I would defer to the municipal solicitor, but I would suspect that it would simply be a matter of when council proceeds with the public hearing, when the advertisements are required to be placed in the Vanguard, that it would be indicated as a numbered company that's entering into the development agreement, as opposed to the previous one. If the solicitor deems that we would have to repeat the process, then I guess we'd be repeating the process. As I say, the municipality wasn't informed until about 2 p.m. today of this development, so there's really nothing that we could have
No, that's fine.
foreseen. Yeah.
Thank you. Leland?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Brad, I can direct a question, I think, to you. Is the development agreement
Yes.
has to be signed by the
business owner or the landowner?
The property owner is what the
The
act says.
property owner.
Yep.
If Leland Anthony owned that piece of property, I'd have to sign that development agreement.
Correct?
And Tom Jones was gonna run the operate, or put up a building and run it. He doesn't sign it. I is the property owner.
That's my understanding. What the act says is the property owner.
Okay.
Now, I assume that if you owned the property and you'd have some interest in the operation that went on the property, so it'd be your manager or your there'd be some legal or business arrangement between the owner and the actual proprietor of the business. But again, all of the business dealings that go on between companies and individuals are beyond really the purview of the planning process, which simply looks at the policies that the council has in its planning strategy for uses of land. And so it's a clear policy in the municipal planning strategy where you permit land-based closed containment aquaculture facilities in your industrial park by development agreement. So that's the long and the short of it from a planning perspective. Providing the development of the site, the use of the land is in compliance with all of the planning strategy and bylaw requirements, then I would, as a planner, I would recommend that council enter that development agreement. All of the concerns about businesses and business dealings and legal issues should something go south are beyond the scope really of the planning process. It simply, does the proposed use, is it permitted, is it allowed by policy, and does council's policy support it? And the answer is yes. I mean, the council does allow for this use in the industrial park, providing there's a development agreement in place. So that's really the scope of my expertise in the matter,
Thank you. Any other questions of Brad? Okay. Brad, thank you for coming in. We'll move on to 4.2, Mariner Center Manager, Mr. Joe Dares, and we'll be addressing the healthy eating and recreation municipal settings policy. So, Gil, if you just want to press your mic, I'll get you around. There you go. You got the floor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity to speak. And this has been an issue that has been brewing, I guess, in the past couple of years. So it's nice to be able to discuss it openly. We're a little concerned at the Mariner Center in regards to not the idea, the ideals of healthy eating and recreational facilities, but possibly the scope. We've made attempts in the past, in my history with the Mariner Center, we've made attempts to provide healthier alternatives to our clients. Unfortunately, the nature of our canteen, I think you have to understand that it hasn't worked out as well as we'd hoped because there's been a lot of spoilage. It's very difficult for us to maintain any kind of fresh produce or fresh or things with a short expiration date. Just because unless there's a product turnover, unless there's a demand for them, we end up with a lot of stuff going in the green cart. Unlike a school environment, we don't cater to a majority of our clients at the canteen are not school children. In fact, our busiest canteen times are during the Junior A games that occur on the weekends mostly, and most of those that attend the Junior A games, of course, are adults. In fact, during a recent game, just to give you an example, we had 1,281 ticketed customers. Of those, only 233 were under 19 years of age, and less than 10% of those would probably be under 16. So the majority of our clients are actually adults during game activities. It's a multi-purpose facility, so it's not strictly a recreational setting. It's, we have concerts and trade shows and other events as well. The biggest problem is that our canteen doesn't operate on a full-time basis, so we're very conscious of the expiration dates. We operate on a very thin profit margin. I think our profit margin for the canteen is roughly 11%. And so it would really cut into those profits if, in fact, we had to lose a lot to spoilage. Through the weeknights, and this evening is a prime example, there's very few sales at the canteen. People don't come to the Mariner Center to have supper. The canteen's closed to the day. It typically opens around 4 o'clock in the afternoon. But most people that come there are coming there for an hour and a half before supper, or possibly an hour and a half or an hour after supper. So it's not like we're serving a lot of meals at the canteen through the week. It's more or less just for smaller items, and in fact the duty that they're most responsible for through the weekday evenings is handing out the dressing room keys and monitoring the use of the dressing rooms and assigning those tasks. We have tried to respond to our clients by looking at what it is that people are bringing into the Mariner Center. So on Saturday mornings, for example, we noticed that people were arriving there with breakfast sandwiches in a bag. So to provide that service, we decided to put that on the menu, and it's proved to be a fairly popular item. And so we do respect that we're trying to respond to client needs. We can and we will provide healthier choices, and we think that, but it has to be met with the demand. We often cater lunches for business groups and things like that, and whenever possible, we'll do things like wraps and salad wraps and things like that that are quite popular. Our biggest problem, I guess, with the policy, if it's adopted, is not so much that what we'd like to have is guidance and assistance and some support in creating a menu that offers better choices. But we don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I guess if we look at the policy, it basically says that by the end of year 2, the deep fryers have to be removed from the canteen. It also states that they'd like to see a maximum of 10% of what they consider to be the less desirable items. And while that's a lofty goal, I think it would be very difficult for us to operate the canteen profitably if we were to remove the deep fryers. I'm told that there are alternatives to deep fryers, that there's convection microwave ovens, but at $15,000 each, it would be experimental at best, and we just don't have that in the budget anyway. We have met with, I've met recently with Misty Doucette and with Jane Cunningham to discuss this very issue, and we had Debbie Smith on the line as well, because we really do want to participate. What we don't want to do, though, is go too far. And by going too far, what we would end up doing is we would end up forcing the canteen out of business. If we have a huge demand for deep fried items on a Friday night when there's a hockey game. And if we don't supply that demand, then I don't think we're probably going to have much use at the canteen. People just like their burgers and fries, and I'm told, although I'm not a big fan, I'm told that rink fries are almost sacred cow. You can't get rid of those, because that's the one thing that to be sacrilege to even consider it. Part of the other problem is we have a very skeleton staff there, very skeleton crew, and to try to commit any human resources to these changes would be a little bit difficult for us. But we're willing to work with the group. I look at, for example, the change that we made when we went to one provider exclusively for beverages. And one of the good things that came of that was that prior to this, when we had 2 pop machines in the lobby, one would have a Diet Cola and the other would have a Diet Cola. And one would have a regular cola and the other one would have a regular cola. So we had a duplication of the same products, and there was a lot of carbonated beverages. When we went to one supplier exclusively, the beauty of that and the benefits of that are that we were down to about 25% of carbonated beverages or less, but we had fruit juices and green teas and water and some sport drinks and things like that. So we're able to provide better alternatives by having one supplier. We've got a beautiful sandwich bar there that we purchased some years ago to try to implement some better choices, and unfortunately every time we've used it, we've ended up filling up the green cart rather than our clients. So we'd like to have some assistance. We'd like to work with the committee and the group, and we'd like to make strides towards providing alternatives and improving the signage and improving the visibility of the healthier eating alternatives. But we're just a little bit concerned about the the provisions of the policy where it states things like the French fry, the deep fryers have to go within 2 years. We have a fishery show coming up in February, and each time we have the fishery show, one of the menu items that's requested by the trade show organizers and by many of the attendees is that we put fish and chips on the menu. And so that's a very popular item during that event. As I say, the majority of our clients that use the canteen, for the most part, are adults. We don't have that many children. We were asked at one time if we would open our canteen during lunch hours because the high school had moved and they could come over and get their French fries, and we said no, we're not going to compete with. We're not going to provide alternatives like that to school kids. So we've taken the high road in some cases, but the elimination of the deep fryers, I think, would, and things like popcorn, I think if we ever eliminate those from our menu, or if we reduce those to the numbers that are being floated, I think it would probably spell the demise of the canteen. So it's sort of a delicate balance right now. But we are very prepared to work with them and look forward to working with them, so long as there's an agreement that there has to be sort of an amendment to the provisions of that policy.
Thank you. Any questions of Mr. Dares? Trevor?
Yeah, Gil, I hear what you're saying for sure, and I think you bring up a lot of good points. And I have children that go there during the day and weekends, that type of thing. And I hear what you're saying, certainly about adults being able to make their choices. So I think there are ways forward. Like, I wouldn't want to suppose us dictating what adults are going to buy at Mariners games and all those types of things. But what I can say is, we do have an obesity issue among children, so I'm concerned about that. And certainly we're looking to develop athletes and healthy eating habits and stuff during the day. So I know when I'm there, and even me, I'm tempted. I'm an onion ring fan, so now and again I'll pick up an onion ring at the canteen. But again, I like to try to, because I take my children there too. And again, it's that constant, pressure to if it's there and it's advertised and it's pushed, and I'm not saying you're pushing that, but I do agree you need more help there. So what I'm kind of proposing, I've thought about this a little bit, is I think the policy is really good in most instances, but I agree with you that maybe you need a little bit more time and you need a little more cooperation, and you maybe need to think about ways you could fund alternative means of cooking. But again, you've got trade shows there, so they want fish and chips, so you're gonna have to probably offer that, right? We don't want to tie your hands so much that you can't run the business type thing and attract events and those types of things. So what I'm thinking, and maybe I get some feedback from you, is that if we were to adopt the policy municipally, but have you work with the stakeholders, with Misty and with Jean over the next 6 months to try to problem solve some of the pieces and move the thing forward, maybe we could amend the policy. So maybe we could adopt the policy with the exception of the Mariners Center for a 6-month period, and then maybe have the three of you come back, maybe you, Misty and Jean together, and perhaps suggest some amendments to the policy that would allow you to work some of those things that you need to work for Mariners games and those types. Does that seem like a reasonable way forward?
I agree. We don't open the canteen, for example, when there's school groups in there. We keep it closed. I agree with you that child obesity is an issue. I've spoken to the Minor Hockey Association in my time there to encourage the coaches to implement rules with the team that kids can't come there on a Saturday, and if you're going to play hockey, you're not allowed to have French fries and pop before you play hockey. It's a no-no. So we've worked with the organizations to say the kids shouldn't be eating that food. It's just that, and for a lot of times, we don't actually have the fryers operating. Don't get me wrong, if there's an alternative out there, somebody said that these convection microwaves that you can cook French fries that are just as tasty. If that's the case, I'd love it, because it would be maintenance-wise. The deep fryers require a fair amount of maintenance. They have to be cleaned. We have filtering systems on their deep fryers, which are used daily, but they have to be cleaned regularly, and that's labor intensive. And we also have to change the oil quite frequently, which is very expensive. So if there was an alternative that you could put something in the oven and press a button and for a little bit of electricity get the same flavor, I'd love to see it. I'd love to entertain that. I just don't know if that's the case, and I'm not going to fall for a sales pitch yet until I test the product. But I really want to work with them, and I'm really thinking that it's a good policy, except that I think maybe in our case it just goes a little bit too far at this time, and it would eventually end up with a negative result. That's my only concern.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The reason this came back to council, if you remember, councillors, is because I had read a report that Gil had done for the Mariner Centre, and he had concerns of the effects that this would have on a municipally owned infrastructure. And I totally agreed with what Gil is stating. If you don't want your kids eating French fries, then don't let them eat French fries. I have no problems with the municipal unit, any of our facilities. You want to have apples and bananas and oranges, you go for it. But the bottom line is the bottom line. I do not agree with just about anything in here. Policy components, food and beverages served and sold. This policy applies to vending machines, canteens, concessions, catering and cafe restaurants, dining halls, tournaments, sporting events, hospitality suites, special events and festivals, meetings, training, programs for all ages. Food and beverages served and sold will reflect the nutritional criteria for the 3 categories of food and beverages. What was it, 2.1? No, 2. I was really upset with it. 2.1, where have I gone by it here? Excuse me. No, I just had it. That all of these things are to be our Rotary Center. And I guess I'll direct this to the CAO. This would involve our Rotary Center. If Leland Anthony wanted to rent that, you, or not you, the municipal unit, you're telling me that, Mr. Anthony, you're going to have a bunch of kids there, but you feed them bananas and apples. No hot dogs, no hamburgers. Am I right? Read the policy. They are out there, and they're going to try and stress that that's what I do there. My biggest concern, I guess, when it comes down to it, how long before, if I serve hamburgers and hot dogs, are you going to then fine me? How long? The Mariner Center is owned by us. If a kid doesn't want to eat a hamburger, and Gil can have apples and bananas and oranges, but I don't believe that the Mariner Center should be forced to have those items. It's your bottom line. He doesn't make a profit, you pay. I haven't been to any hockey games this year, but last year when I was there, during intermission, there's quite a criteria that goes over to the Petrocan station. And that's probably the reason, because there's a lot of people lined up at the canteen facilities. They want bags of chips and so on. They're not gonna, can I have an apple or an orange? I guess my biggest concern, don't cut off your nose despite your face. I don't agree with this policy. I really don't. We're forcing something that should not be forced. If I, as a resident, want to rent a facility and I only want to serve apples and oranges, that's me. If I want to serve hamburgers and hot dogs, as long as I leave that facility in the same condition I found it, so be it. I don't agree that we should be forcing our own infrastructure to have to kowtow to this policy. Gil, you have some concerns on this, and I think you've been very polite here tonight, overly polite.
Well, some of my concerns have been addressed in the conversations that I've had with Misty and with Debbie and Jane. I was concerned, for example, our groups, our restaurants are allowed to advertise in our facility, for example, if they don't have a healthy eating menu. But on some of those concerns have been addressed. we had the firefighters, for example, we do host the Firefighters Fun Day, and we provide the facility to them on an annual basis, and we do that because we want to support the fire department. We all know that fire departments don't have the ability these days to generate their own revenues because fire halls, not like the old days where they had bingos and dances and that sort of thing, but so we support them by allowing them to use our facility, and last year they served over 900 hot dogs. My concern was, are they still going to be able to come in and serve hot dogs? And we had the mayor's children's picnic for Seafest, and they served about 900 hot dogs. Will that still be able to happen? My understanding is that there's a possibility that we can't dictate to our clients what's served on the premises. Now, I don't know. I think it's still a gray area. They have alleviated some of my concerns, not all. I think that my biggest concern is, are we going too far too fast? And, well, I guess it's no, are we going too far? And are we going too fast? I think it's two separate things, they're not connected. I think at this stage, removing the deep fryers without an alternative, even within 2 years, is possibly not in the best interest of the Mariner Center. And I also think that some of the other policies, depending on how they play out, we have, for example, we have minor hockey, depends quite heavily on when they have a tournament on the hospitality suite. We don't dictate what they serve during the hospitality suite. So a lot of these are things that parents have brought in, moms and dads, hockey moms and dads have brought in from home. Only stipulation we make is that if it's going to be things like chowder, something cooked, that it has to be prepared in our kitchen. You can't bring chowder from home and mix it in a pot and sell it or serve it to the public. So we do stress if it's going to be something that's served to the public or sold to the public, it has to be prepared in our licensed and inspected kitchen. It can't be made at home. But I did, based on a complaint a couple of years ago, I did get clearance from the Department of Agriculture that they would basically allow the hospitality suites to take place as long as they're only serving that food to the participants. So in other words, they're not selling or serving to the public, just the participants of the event. It's a gray area, but if we start telling them you can't bring in items that, unless they meet the food, like I don't want to have to police that. I guess that's the biggest thing. I don't want to have to be watching to see if, if mom or dad brings in a plate of brownies because they don't meet the nutritional guide. The other thing I have to be concerned about is that I think the policy asks for nutritional information to be attached to everything that's served, and boy, I'm not a wizard in that, so I don't know how we calculate that. So there are some concerns I have with the implementation of the policy. As I say, I understand the need to encourage healthy alternatives, and I'm fully in support of that. But I just want to be cautious that we don't cut off our nose to spite our face, I guess.
Okay, can I just say something before I see Mike's flashing here? The manager has brought forth some valid points. We've got two issues going. One is the Mariner Center, and Leland's brought up the whole policy. We are co-owners of the Mariner Center with the town. We also have a third funding partner that funds any deficits. And I think before we go too far or waste a whole lot of time on the Mariner side of it anyhow, if you guys want to go back into the policy, I think in January the town will be addressing, I think we should be sitting down with our two funding partners in the Mariner Center and working out this policy, because you can do whatever you want. You only own a share of the Mariner Center, so it's redundant tonight to beat a lot of time and beat this around anymore. That's my opinion now. If you guys feel different, then by all means, your lights are flashing. I don't know who next. I'm going to flick it on. Steve, I guess.
Yeah, thanks, Warden. I think, first of all, I just wanted to make a clarification. Councillor Anthony mentioned that we would be imposing the policy on renters of the facility. That's not the case. On page 1 of the policy, it says that community groups and individuals renting facilities will be encouraged to adhere to the policy. They're not governed by the policy. That's first and foremost. And I think, you know, when we look at healthy public policy, it's a challenge, right? Because it's a large science, the science of health promotion, and it happens to be my area of expertise. And I can tell you that encouraging young people to eat healthy while having the soda machines and everything around doesn't really cut it, unfortunately. There's a lot of misinformation out there. I can tell you that the sports drinks are no better than the Coke, right? So Gatorade and Coca-Cola are both in the lowest nutrition category. Juices, if they're 100%, are not in that category. So, you know, this is a huge issue. It's a big issue facing the province, and I think we want to be on the leading edge of that. I think it's, and you know what? You are someone that I see in our community as being all about supporting and promoting health. So, you know, if you guys need more time, I'm pretty sure I'll be supportive of that because of the track record that I've seen from you. I know you've backed off alcohol when there was pressure in some cases to maybe try to expand alcohol at the facility as an example. That stuck with me as demonstrating your commitment to health in a way that's not always the norm. But at the same time, I think we want to hold fast where we can, make sure that you get all of the supports that are out there. I know there are monies out there, you know, for this transition process. We have expertise out there. I would encourage you maybe to get in touch with, I think it's Patty who runs food and nutrition at the hospital, because they've gone through that. They had to rip out the fryers, and I still see French fries on the menu from time to time. So I'm not sure how they do that, but they do a pretty exceptional job at providing concessions at the hospital. But I don't want to be too quick. There's been a lot of study and a lot of research and effort that's gone into preparing this policy over at least 2 years. So before we make any kind of rash comments about the content of the policy, I think we got to get the right people at the table and make sure that you have all the supports that you need. And if more time is needed, then absolutely we got to look at that.
Thank you. And I might add, if I could, there's time when I struggle between personal opinion and my role as the manager. So sometimes I'm speaking on behalf of the Mariner Center, and it may not align 100% with my personal opinion, but that's my job. So.
Yeah, you know, and I agree with a lot of everything that's been said here tonight, and time, I think, is something the Mariner Center does need. Having said that, I mean, the public health concern around obesity, high cholesterol, I mean, anybody that tries to get an insurance policy, I wouldn't want to have kids eating, you know, certainly any more of bad food choices than they have to, because I'll tell you personally, I've had that issue. I keep fairly healthy, but tough to get into term insurance policy. You pay extra later on in life when you want to protect your family from you know, possibility death and those types of things. So these are very, very complicated issues. They're not simple. I think we've got to do the best we can do to provide healthy choices while at the same time respecting people's right to choose. I think that's important. I mean, Mariners games, outside events, I mean, people have the right to choose what they want to. I'll agree. So I think generally speaking, a lot of work's gone into policy. I think it's generally speaking good. I understand the Mariner Center's perspective. So I mean, what I'd like to do is I'd like to make a motion that we adopt the policy with the exception of the Mariner Center facility for a period of 6 months, with the understanding that Mariner Center management would work with partners to see how it is that they might modify the policy to suit everybody concerned, including the Mariner Center's management, make sure that it's the best it can be for the Mariner Center and the whole municipality.
We have a motion on the floor. Is there any discussion, or do we have a seconder?
I'll second it for discussion purposes only.
Okay. Turn your mic on, John, please.
Sorry, Mr. Chair. Did we not, I have to ask this question through you, Mr. Chair, to the CAO. Did we not already adopt this policy? Or is it, this was just moved from another, it was moved from a previous meeting?
No, my understanding is I believe it was entertained at committee of the whole and it's been brought forward, and now there have been some concerns brought forward, so
Okay.
it has not.
Yeah, that's correct. That we discussed this in the committee of the whole, and I know Councillor Anthony, I believe, had mentioned concerns about this policy before, and I can't remember if it was in committee of the whole, if it was another passing conversation, but Jill brings up a lot of good points that I never thought of. Yeah, it's all fine and dandy, but the clientele that he deals with, they pretty well demand French fries and hot dogs and hamburgers watching a hockey game. I realize the fact that we need to be eating healthy, and we really should be promoting this in our municipally owned sports facilities. I have an echo going on here. It's really messing me up. But I think we need to possibly look at this policy a little bit further, and I hate the word exemption, but maybe this is a classic case of maybe where we should be looking for an exemption or a modification.
All right, I think Councillors Cunningham's comments are correct, and that's what the motion speaks to. It speaks to adopting the policy with the exception of the Mariner Center for a 6-month period, and in the Mariner Center's management would bring forth, along with partners, bring forth a suitable series of amendments or exceptionalities, that some of which have been discussed here tonight. So, you know, people have freedom of choices as well, so we can improve the situation, but still have the freedom of choice and be able to run things profitably and so forth. So I think that also provides the opportunity for us to talk with our partners, that the other 2 municipal units in the Mariner Center, and I guess makes a reasonable path forward.
No, Trevor, you mentioned the 6-month trial, or yeah, just for 6 months. So you're saying that they accept the policy, so they would be the policy would be accepted.
No, I'm saying that the exemption for 6 months, prior to 6 months, they bring a series of amendments, and we adopt those amendments to the Mariners. So if at a hockey game, they wanted to do it, or whatever it is, like
Okay, so they're not committed.
a separate series of rules for the Mariners. But a separate series of actually, bring suggestions.
But would they still be saying, no, we don't want it? Are you saying,
I'm saying adopt it for the municipality, with the exception of the Mariner Center. So over the next 6 months, we'll be able to speak with our municipal partners. We'll also be able to have time to speak with all stakeholders and so forth, and bring a special set of rules for the Mariner Center.
but this is what I'm saying, we would accept the policy first.
Yeah.
So the Mariner Center has accepted it if they go with that, with the 6-month period.
No, but before the 6 months is up, they would have
Yes.
an open group
Yes, yes, I realize that, but if we say no, we don't want to, you know, we will still want you to do this and do that. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? No? It's, oh,
The issue, Trevor, I have
huh? You understand really?
is that you're passing a policy,
Yes.
and I have no problem passing a policy with stuff that we own, but you're also passing a policy with a condition on something that we co-own. And I don't think you can take our policy and make it work. So I think you're going to have to, I wish Raymond was here, but I think for that policy, for what we own, I think you're going to have to exempt the Mariner Center altogether and work that out with our partners. But you might need a legal opinion on that.
I think that's a good idea. No, and that's a point well taken. So I'd like to, with Councillor Cunningham's agreement, withdraw the motion. And, is that okay, Mr. Cunningham? Yes, it is. And make the motion that we adopt the policy with the exception of the Mariner Center. And we'll talk with our partners and then perhaps have a separate policy for the Mariner Center. I think that's a good idea.
Well, I think it's a very interesting question as to whether or not, you know, our municipal policy is actually effectual in a co-owned scenario. I'm not sure. You know, that aside, I think you know, again, there was a lot of work done here. There's a 3-year phased implementation plan. You know, stakeholders all over, you know, our municipality and through our partners have been consulted. There's been lots of dialogue. You know, I wouldn't want to see the policy set back because of, you know, the difficulty, quite frankly. I think it is going to be hard, and I think it's going to take a lot of collaboration. And you know, I would hope that at the end of the day, you know, revenues at the canteen are going to go up, not down. But to get, you know, between here and there, obviously it's going to be some work, and as laid out here, probably 3 years or more of effort to sort of start to change the behavior over there. So I guess I just wanted to get back in the conversation to remember why. You know, it's funny, we go through so much time and effort, some of us and others not, depending on how engaged we are in any particular thing that comes to this table. And sometimes we can lose sight of that big picture in a single moment, and I don't want to see that happen tonight.
Could I offer some encouragement? If I could, it was related to me not long ago that here at the Hebron Center years ago, they used to sell 10 cases of Coke or pop for every case of water. And today they sell 10 cases of water for every case of pop, but they still offer both alternatives. So I think that's the goal. The goal is to say, how do we shift public attitudes? Do we do that by enforcing them, or do we do that by encouraging them? And I would prefer to see that we do it by encouragement. We can control, for example, when the deep fryers get turned on, and we do that now. We don't, I mean, when I first started going to the rink, when it was first opened, I mean, if there was a school group in there, the lineup was right down the hall because the French fryers were cooking. We don't do that anymore. So we do control to a point already. We're policing it by not starting the French fryers, the deep fryers, when there's people in the building. I'm really encouraged by the results that they see at the Hebron Center by saying, yeah, you know what, public attitudes have changed and there's been a shift. I'd like to see that, and I'd like to see us work in that direction. And I'm really encouraged by Misty and Jane and by Debbie that we can work together and make that happen. I'm just a little leery that the policy, as it's written, would be very restrictive for us, and would be difficult for us to I want to make sure that we have enough time to get from here to there. That's all. Thank you.
Councillor Anthony? I'm sorry you got out of the loop there, but you're in now.
I'm not going to say too much more, Mr. Chair. I wasn't in agreement with Trevor's first motion. And I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not going to support any motion that comes on the floor to pass this. I find sometimes when you do things of that nature and you give time for somebody or two organizational groups to get together to make some changes, it don't work. I think if this policy doesn't pass from this municipal unit's perspective, then recreation in the Mariner Center will sit down sooner and come to a final agreement a lot sooner. If you give a term of 6 months, 8 months, you'll use all that, and then at the end of 8 months, Leland's probably forgot all about it, and whatever happens, it'll be. I'm not going to support any part of this motion because there's too many implications, or I see implications in there that'll come out of the woodwork. Second year down the road, third year down the road, and I'm a person, if something is working good, let it go. If I don't want my child to eat a hamburger or a hot dog, Sonny Bubs, you don't eat a hamburger or a hot dog. If I want my kid to have a hamburger, I let him have a hamburger. I don't think it's the municipal responsibility to tell any organization or any part of our infrastructure what they should do and shouldn't do when it comes to eating of food. I have no problems with apples and oranges, I said on the thing. But if you read that, it's supposed to be at eye level, it's supposed to be priority placing and so on. I don't agree with that. I don't agree with it. So I'm not going to support the motion in any way, shape, or form. Any way, shape, or form, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a question through you to the CAO. Would it not be prudent to send this back with the concerns that were brought up here, especially with jointly owned facilities like the Mariner Center, the Rotary Center up above here, and the EMO building? Would it not be prudent to send it back to the committee and get them to look at that and point out those things that we have mentioned here tonight?
Well, the second motion, I guess, was going to exclude the Mariner Center from this initial go-around. The other concern, I guess, is that recreation is a joint venture with the town of Yarmouth. And again, I think it's all good discussion, but I think that we should have some discussion with our partners. And I'm not saying we don't approve this in a month's time, but I think we need to go in this with a common agreement on what gets approved and how it gets approved, because there is overlap, and we talk about shared services. We do so much with our partners that even something like this, we better make sure we're all on the same page. It's just a good example of how we share a lot of things.
Well, having said that, so I mean, my question is this was done, I thought this was done jointly, and essentially both, this policy has essentially been presented in parallel with the town. Is that not correct?
That's correct. They've been presented with the same policy. I guess what I'm saying is they are our partners. We should have that discussion as partners before we approve this. We may agree on some amendments, or we may agree to put it through as is. But I think where everything is joint here, we do everything with them. As partners, we really should, to do this properly, we should consult with our partners before we make one motion and then make a different motion, and then we're 3 months down the road trying to figure out why we went in different directions.
So the motion on the floor is, there's no motion now? Okay, there's no motion. You with?
What I will do is, I'll withdraw that motion. But what I will say is, this came to committee the whole. I mean, I don't know whether you want me aware that, you know, my understanding was there was.
That this was, I would have thought those communications would have taken place, you know, in terms of already before it sort of came to council. So it should have probably stayed in committee of the whole rather than being move forward to council, because typically when it's moved forward to council, we're ready to make a motion to vote on it. So probably we made the mistake of not of bringing it forward. So anyway, I'll withdraw that, and we'll have that consultation.
Rick, were you satisfied? Did you have more to say? And then Ken wants to speak to it, so if you press your button, I'll turn you back on. There you go.
Well, yes, and I agree with some of the things that Ken said. I mean, we all need to work together on this and come, like, you know, right now we're kind of just, I don't know, we're just, nobody's come to some common denominator, and I think we should come to some agreement and maybe hash this over a little bit more and take it back to the recreation people or whoever, you know, and hash it out a little more before there's any decision made on it.
Well, I just wanted to make the point that this wasn't necessarily on the agenda tonight, this evening, to make a decision on. It was on the agenda for the manager of the Mariner Center to make a presentation to council and express maybe concerns he did have with it, or how that's gone for him, and maybe a way forward. So it wasn't necessarily intended that we make a decision on it tonight, because we've been made aware that the town of Yarmouth's not dealing with this till mid-January, I believe. So I think they'll probably have a similar presentation. I'm assuming they want to talk.
I haven't been invited as yet, but
But in the end, after we have all the information, I think we need to speak as partners with each other and make a unified decision on how we move on this.
I think there's a win-win out there.
Mr. Chair, thank you very much. Last comment. When Ms. C and them were in making the presentation, we as councillors passed it. We were going to make a motion at our next council meeting. It was going to committee of the whole and from committee of the whole. And in that interim, there had been a meeting, I guess, of the Mariner Center. And in your report in the Mariner Center, you had some concerns about that. And I brought it forward at our committee of the whole meeting. Asked, and from there, the committee of the whole, the thought was to ask Gil to come in at a time convenient and have this discussion this evening. And that's what has happened. And I think we've all got a little better understanding. And I think, like, as the CAO said, I think we better sit down and have a good open discussion with our partners and so on, because this can affect down the road big time, or I feel it can. That's it. Thank you.
It strikes me as a bit odd, this whole thing. We've got some facts here. We've got a policy that people have been talking about. It's been under development for 2 years. Comes to council. We've got Mariner Center staff. We've got other paid municipal staff working. Doesn't seem like our staff, our staff, whether directly or indirectly employed, I think there's a lot of disagreements behind the scenes, and for policy to come before council, committee of the whole, where there's not a lot of staff agreements, for me that's problematic. It's problematic, period. I mean, this policy development piece should have really taken place prior to it coming to our attention, period. And I don't know who, I mean, it seems like there's two divergent trains of thought entirely. I don't believe people have been working together as well as they should be, because we've had two separate presentations, and they've been there's something not meshing here. So you know, I'm a little upset about that, generally speaking. I mean, I think when especially because it's all, you know, there's been municipal staff, directly or indirectly employed, working on the policy supposedly for years, and sort of in the last month or two, we have, you know, all these issues cropping up. I mean, I would have thought that maybe this would have been better thought through in terms of maybe there was an exception for the Mariner Center built in there. You know, I'm not sure how long Mr. Dares has known about this, but you know, seems as though something should have been done more before it came to council in a more completely developed policy. So I guess those would be my comments. But I agree with the rest of the councillors. At the end of the day, we've debated this issue, and I think we need to send it back for further development, further clarification, so it's better out of the blocks. But in any event, those would be my comments.
Well, I'd only add, I'm glad getting tongue-tied. Glad you came in. I don't see a problem with the process. I think Recreation did a great job. I think in principle, the policy probably is a good thing. I think what we failed to recognize, and it's just coming out tonight, is that this policy affects Recreation and the Mariner Center, and we don't own neither one by ourselves. They're funded by a partner. So I guess it's not fair for us to pass a policy, or for the town to pass a policy, without us as partners sitting down together first and looking at the policy. So I think that's came out tonight. So I think that's our next step. You brought some legitimate issues, and personally I agree with a lot of what you raised. I mean, sometimes a blanket policy just don't fit everything, and I see problems with it. I think it's great for summer camp and soccer games and all the rest. I'm not so sure it works so great for the Mariner Center. Either or, at the end of the day, we should be sitting down with the town, because we own Recreation together and we own the Mariner Center together, and this policy affects both of you. So, and I think that's our next move, because we shouldn't be implementing anything. What's the good of one of us implements and one of us throws it in the garbage can? So let's work on it, and that's would be for council. That's, I think, our next move. Deputy Warden.
I guess what I find this situation is a bit odd. I think that I don't think there's any big mystery in tonight. I don't think any breakdown in staff communications personally. I think it's a tough, it's got some tough nuts in there, and it's going to be a challenge. It's going to be a challenge for the Mariner Center. I think the one definitive question tonight is, does a municipal-only policy apply in the Mariner Center? I find it hard to believe it could, when the Mariner Center itself is a jointly owned property. So that's an outstanding question. To suggest that we haven't sat down with our partner, I find that's a difficult statement to absorb, because being a recreation-driven policy, it was co-developed with the town for all intents and purposes. I don't know in what format we sit down with our partner, other than in our joint recreation committee. That's where we sit down with our partner, the town, and talk about recreation policy. So I'm not, when the suggestion is made we have to sit down with our partner, I don't know where that happens. Is that we get all the council members together? Our model of governance doesn't work that way. It works by jointly owned, jointly supported committees, of which, Councillor Churchill's the chair of that recreation committee. So the policy's been adopted by the joint recreation committee, recommended up. It was, we've had multiple presentations at committee of the whole. It came to committee of the whole as a final draft. We agreed at that time to move it up to council, and I think it was probably omitted from the agenda by staff error, and made it onto the agenda because a major stakeholder had an issue. Even the format of this moment, I find odd, that we're discussing a policy and Gil's still at the table. I think we should hear Gil's concern and then talk about the policy. So, before we get too confused here, this is a jointly developed policy, approved and recommended to both councils by the Joint Recreation Committee. It's been heard and heard and heard. Councillor Anthony has eloquently expressed his concern from day one, and I accept and acknowledge that. And I think that we should be, by now, prepared to vote on a pretty well thought out, well supported, and we had stakeholder engagement and community engagement every step of the way. The process doesn't get any better than this. And I think our staff has to be commended for the work that's gone into this with professional consultation and collaboration with the district health authority, with evidence-based approach to policy development. It doesn't get any cleaner than this. And I understand it's a challenge. I appreciate Gil being here and expressing some concern that revenue could be in jeopardy, that it's an aggressive policy in that sense, I suppose. And yet at the same time, there's a well thought out 3-year implementation plan. And I'd like to see municipal assets, and again, we're unsure if the Mariner Center, is locked into this kind of thing, but I'd like to see the progress after year 1 or year 2 on this implementation strategy. And then if there's real question marks about whether or not it could adhere successfully to the policy without seriously damaging its bottom line, we can address that. But to put the whole policy in jeopardy and imply this sense of confusion, I think does the policy an injustice. And again, I think we should thank Gil for being here and then excuse him. He made his comments, we've responded to his comments, and I think we need to, as a council, talk about passing this policy. Thank you.
Gil, thank you for coming in.
Thank you very much.
So I guess my question is, we've talked about this for 45 minutes. If someone's prepared to make a motion, then we'll move on it. If not, we got other business to do. So go ahead. All right, Trevor, you're on first. All right. Go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the policy, healthy eating in municipal and recreation settings, H06514.
Okay. Did someone second that? Okay, so you have a motion on the floor. It's been seconded. Any discussion?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Most generally, I would go ahead and approve this, but I was, I guess, I didn't read the policy as well as I thought I did, and Councillor Anthony brought up quite a few good points. I think this policy should be moved back to the committee of the whole where we can discuss it out a little bit more before we make a decision. I'm not prepared right now to make a subsidiary motion just to confuse everybody, but I would prefer that we, number one, send it back to the committee of the whole to discuss it further and possibly move it back to the Recreation Committee to discuss the concerns that we and or our partners may have about it, and then move it back up. And that's what this whole process is about. I'd rather not just move it forward just because. There was a lot of valid concerns brought up here, and I'd like to apologize. Maybe I should have read it a little bit better.
Trevor.
Yeah, I'd like to make a subsidiary motion. I would like to add that I'd like to move that we exempt the Mariner Center from the policy until we get further information.
Rick.
Okay. Do we need a seconder of that motion
You need
first?
a second for his amendment.
Okay, well, I'll just second it for discussion, but I'm just wanting to,
He's calling it a subsidiary. I'm going to call it an amendment. But
okay. Anyhow, I'd just like to talk about a little bit what Steve said, all the work that the Recreation Committee did put into this. But at the time, I guess probably we never thought we were going to have someone like Mr. Dares come in here and, have some concerns about it. And I guess maybe now I'm thinking like Councillor John Cunningham was saying, maybe we should take this back to the Committee of the Whole or take it back to Recreation and discuss it a little bit further. So that's my suggestion.
Any further discussion on the amendment? Question being called on the amendment. All in favor, say aye. Contrary, nay. All right, amendment defeated. Show of hands. All in favor of the amendment, raise your right hand. So, you're not in favor of the amendment, Councilor Anthony? All those opposed, raise your right hand to the amendment. Amendment defeated. Original motion. Any further discussion on the original motion? Which was to pass a policy. Right, Steve? We'll read back, Councilor, the Deputy Warden's motion. Do you remember exactly what it was, Deputy Warden?
Yeah, my motion was to accept the recommendation of the Joint Recreation Committee
To accept the policy.
to accept the policy as written. That's right.
Okay. Any further discussion on the original motion? Question being called. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Contrary, nay. I'll have to go to a show of hands. All in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. All not in favor, nay, raise your right hand. Rick, where were you on your first one?
I'm for the motion.
To-
My concern is still.
No, but I didn't see. All right, so we have 3 for and 3 against? Okay. I'm going to vote nay, and I'll explain that. Yes, and I know that I'm going to get some flack for that. So I'm going to explain. I agree that staff did a lot of work. I don't think the Recreation Department that did this work was aware of some of the consequences of this. I don't think that they took in consideration that recreation is co-owned. That when you bring in a policy for recreation, you can't bring in a policy and pass a policy just us if the town doesn't go with it. So, and I think the policy needs work. I think there's some things that I am in favor of a policy for healthy eating. I'm not in favor of the policy as it is per se, because I think there is a few issues in there. So I voted nay because I think we got to go back and look at a few issues there and work them out. Sorry. Okay. Having said that.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I don't know if I need to make a motion or not, but if I do, I would make this motion. I move that we move this policy back to the committee of the whole for more discussion and possibly send it back to the Recreation Committee.
Okay, you have a motion on the floor. Any discussion on that motion? Yes, Trevor.
Yeah, I mean, my principal concern in not passing the policy was the Mariner Center that Gil expressed tonight. I guess just to sum up, there was a motion made. Councillor Paquette made a motion to pass it. There was a subsidiary motion to pass it with the Mariner Center exempted, and then that was defeated. So of course I voted nay because I believe the Mariner Center needs a lot more time to work with partners to get that piece straightened out. But having said that, we are where we are, and I think sending it back to committee of the whole, having some conversations. But I would like to get some clarity around what the issues are. I mean, there's the Mariner Center issue, which I think is the predominant one. Being able to give people choice at major events, being able to give people choice when, you know, they're hosting events from, like, you know, in terms of being able to, you know, access the foods like the popcorns and the fries and the all burgers and all that stuff during those types of events. So I think that's probably going to have to happen at the Mariner Center. Having said that, so we've got that issue, and we've got we've got the issue of the Mariner Center generally, but are there other issues out there that we need to talk about at committee of the whole? So let's try to get those straightened out. So when we send it back to the committee, I would agree with John sending it back there. What are some of the other concerns?
Well, one of my concerns would be that recreation, as I said, and that staff did a wonderful job, and as a whole, I agree with that policy. I guess we have some issues that's got to be worked on, and if we pass that policy as per se, we haven't addressed the issues. So I think we have to work on a policy, but I don't know just us working on it is enough. I think recreation has to go back. If we're going to work on it separate from the town, then I think they have to go back to the town and address this issue with the Mariner Center. Definitely, and I think there's some other issues. So how do you want to, I understand your motion, Councillor. I don't know if it addresses it enough, that's all.
I would like just to even have a discussion with Frank and Maura on that regards and have them in here on the discussion and express our concerns, and maybe they'll alleviate our concerns, and maybe that was not the intent, or maybe it was worded wrong. And I know policies are really hard to come up with and to get everybody to agree on, absolutely. And I think that maybe we should have them as well when we're discussing that. I don't believe there's going to be major wholesale changes, just a few minor tweaks. And that's the whole reasoning for council to discuss this. We don't have to pass every policy that's put in front of us. We can turn it back. And it'd be the same thing if he has to come up with a policy on purchasing, whatever. We can turn it back. Because there always seems to be, no matter how well intentioned we are in trying to produce the perfect policy, that there's always something that's going to come up. And this is something that's very important, and I think that we really should be supporting healthy eating in the municipality and our municipally owned structures, and this is something that's important that we get right.
Yeah, to me, it seems like everybody's missing the boat. You're saying you got to talk to the other partners, but we have a committee that there's, I can't remember how many from the town that are already on that committee. And then the municipality has 3 on that same committee, so we are talking to the partners. They're representing the town. I was at a meeting last night, or a PAC meeting last night, and it's basically the same thing. They recommended something, but it was people from the town, people from the municipality that are involved in the committee, and hope you understand that one, what I'm talking about.
Just, that is a good point, that this was developed, and I wasn't thinking of that, and Deputy Warden brought that up. It was developed through the Recreation Committee, and I guess wasn't thinking about the collaborative work from both partners in developing that. So I guess my thoughts on that are that, yes, the policy was put together with the knowledge of our partners, members as well. The only thing that I guess that's still missing here is that how we dovetail the Mariner Center into this. And I think maybe the best way is to have Gil and or people from his board sit down, maybe back at the level where this was developed, and agree on a way to move forward, and then bring it back to both partners for approval once they get that agreement, I think, perhaps.
I think you're going to get some other flack. Once the policy gets more opened, there's more organizations that are going to hear about it, and you're going to get the same flack that the Mariner Center brought up tonight. It's not open to the public yet, or the public doesn't know about it enough that they haven't. But once, you'll see the complaints.
Yeah, and Thanks for mentioning that, Gerard, because I'm still kind of surprised because, you know, for us as council, especially for council maybe that's not on the recreation committee or hasn't been involved in the policy development process, to think that the Mariner Center hasn't been involved every step of the way. I mean, come on. They're the biggest recreation event place in our municipality. Of course, the Mariner Center has been consulted, and you know, concerns have been exchanged, and policy drafts have been written and rewritten. You know, and at the first, I'm seriously, I think we have to answer the question: does a policy that gets passed by the municipality carry any weight if the exact same policy is not passed by the town in the venue of the Mariner Center? That's a legal question or a governance question that's regardless of this healthy eating policy. But at the first, you know, at the first mention of the policy itself being a challenge, to see this council, you know, flip-flop on something that we've had in our, you know, we've had every step of the way, it's very concerning to me. And, you know, I just, I don't know how we try and make sure this doesn't happen again, but I know a lot of stuff comes at us, believe me, I know. And that's why we trust each other when, and we trust our joint councils, or our joint committees, sorry. But yeah, it's surprising to me that that we're not more resilient. And the other thing is, staff that worked on the project should absolutely be here when you know, when it's like for a community stakeholder to come around the table, express concern, and we're trying to rebut it based on what? Based on the fact that we've been elected by people in our district, when we had a, you know, master's level trained professionals in health promotion and nutrition, and, you know, developed this policy, and based on based on our personal belief system, you know.
Where are we going with this, though, Deputy?
Where I'm going is that if we're going to address a policy, we better make sure that the right people are in the room.
There's a motion on the floor that's totally different from where we're going now with this discussion.
The motion to assign the policy continues to be worked at committee of the whole.
That council's already made a motion on, and it was defeated. So there's no purpose tonight now to relive that. I know you disagree with what council decided, and I understand that.
Well, not only that, I disagree with the process.
Okay, but to move forward with Councillor Cunningham's motion, like, how much more discussion, Trevor? And then we're going to have to vote on it.
Just a quick comment. I mean, some of what Steve's talking about in the process is correct. I mean, I voted against not accepting the policy tonight just because I thought that there were too many questions around the Mariner Center. But having said that, I would agree with what he said. These people, I mean, Mr. Dares must have at some point worked with our municipal staff, is what I'm saying, and now comes in separately. We don't have the other staff members here. I would think they would have worked together collaboratively, and that's what I was saying. And I'm not faulting our staff, certainly, because I think they did a fantastic job putting this together and bringing it forward. It's well thought out. There was a public consultation process, all this type of thing. And I had one presentation to the committee of the whole, and then I had another one with very different stories. There were none of these concerns brought up, and then all of a sudden we get all these concerns, and I was willing to pass it with the exemption of the Mariner Center to work that out for the various reasons. But having said that, I will support John's motion to take it back to the joint committee, and to bring it to committee of the whole again.
Liz, would you reread the motion? Because do you have it?
To move the policy to committee of the whole and possibly to recreation.
Okay. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, nay. Motion carried. Thank you, gentlemen. We'll move on to 5.1. appointment of Chris Churchill as building official, as a building official and bylaw enforcement officer for Modi. Councillor Cunningham.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that we appoint Chris Churchill as a building official and bylaw officer for the municipality district of Yarmouth.
I'll second that. Sure.
Any further discussion?
Question.
Question being called. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, nay. Motion carried. 5.2, Public Works Building Public Consultation. Councillor Cunningham.
Yeah, I guess last council meeting I asked for this report to be tabled, and I want to make sure that's made available to the public in paper copy as well as on our website. And I'd like to, at this point, there's been no sort of indication that there'll be a public hearing, but I'd like to hear from the public on the proposed building. So I believe I'd like to make a motion that we conduct a public hearing with this motion to hear what the public has to say about the proposed municipal building.
I'll second that, Mr. Chair.
Motion on the floor, been seconded. Any further discussion? Okay.
Question?
Just wondering if I could get clarification. I'm just a little uncertain. This is actually in council's capital priority lists. We're currently undertaking site preparation, so I'm not sure what this is in reference to.
I was flashing, but you guys were still on, so.
Oh.
I guess I made a motion. I'd like to have a public session where people can come in and make comments on the. Yeah, it's been seconded. Yeah.
I was interested, I think you initially said public hearing, and I just wanted to get clarification on what exactly that would entail, I guess.
I guess what it would entail.
That's essentially what I was asking. I'm
Oh,
just
sorry.
not sure because it.
Yeah, it would be.
It's already set as a priority of councils, and budgets have been set and contracts have been let. So I'm just not sure what you're referencing here. So
Could you
clarity on
clarify
that
though,
would be good.
because it was on the news, we have no tenders out for the building itself. We've put tenders out for the groundwork. Yes, right, site preparation only, okay, because,
In my understanding is it's in the capital plan, so there are plans to at some point in the passed by council and some point in the future to move forward. So I'd like to have a public hearing where people could have their input on design, size, you know, whether they want it, all these types of things, because we haven't done that yet.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I most generally would be in favor of this motion. However, what I want to see first is I want to see some more specs. Like, yes, we've already gone forward with the land preparation. We're moving forward with that. That's already a given. But I don't feel it's prudent to have a public information session without we're going to be asking staff to go forward and look for buildings and designs and prices. And now, when staff narrows that down and we decide what we're going to be doing, then absolutely, let's have a public information session or consultation then. I don't believe it's prudent at this time to move forward with that motion. I am principally in favor of the motion, but technically I cannot be in favor of it this time until we actually have some hard facts on what the building is. The land preparation out there is a done deal. We approved that. It's going forward. It come in under budget. I'm just waiting to see, or I want to see when the time is right, or when staff brings it forward, the price, design, size, all that other stuff. That's when the public information and or consultation process should be taking part, in my opinion. So I'm not in favor of the motion at this time.
Just for clarification, again, this is not an architecturally designed building. This is a steel building, a garage on a slab, a piece of basic municipal infrastructure so that employees within the Public Works Department can get their equipment inside so they can properly maintain and repair it. It's not. This is not a rocket science type of a project. This is very basic municipal infrastructure that we don't currently have. And it's been on the planning stages for the last 10 years, and it keeps getting deferred forward, which is fine, but it's getting to a point where we've built additional infrastructure. We've got a dozen kilometers of sidewalks strewn all over the municipality. We've got 4 sewage treatment systems with dozens of sewer treatment or sewer pump stations, lift stations. We've got a sewer treatment plant. We've got numerous equipment and things to keep repaired. It's getting to be quite difficult to actually for our guys to do that, and they've been without proper facilities. Like I say, it's been on the drawing board for 10 years or so. It keeps getting deferred forward. I guess it's difficult to carry out, to figure out what exactly we're supposed to do. So I guess there's not a whole lot more to say, but it's a little discouraging when we're trying to just move forward to give our guys what they need to do their job.
Well, I'm going to, Leland, did you want to say something?
There's a reasoning behind seconding this motion. We as councillors supported fully the building of the public works. We have been given the information. It's all there in front of us, and I don't think any of us can deny any of the things that are there pertaining to the amount of equipment, as the CAO just said, our sidewalks, our sewer lines, etc., the industrial park, etc., and on it goes. We as councillors know that. I can go out, and if I have a resident in my area said, I hear you're building a public works building, I can sit down and I can explain to them the full rationale, and they leave fully understanding. I have no objections to the staff putting on an information session to the general public. Open it up at the Rotary Center, and we'll serve, no pun intended, Steve, we'll serve healthy food, and and put on this is the reasoning why the municipality. I know the reasoning. I've read it. I've understood it for years. I look out here in the parking lot and I see it. Line the machinery up at the Rotary Center. Invite the public in and say, this is what we have, this is what we need, this is where the equipment sets, this is how it works. We needed the building, and those people that are genuinely concerned can come there and get the full understanding. I don't know if putting it on the website, Ken, would fill that objective. If it would, I'd say,
It's there.
yeah. Yeah.
If I could, I don't mind when we get to the stage of coming up and laying out some options. Again, this is not anything elaborate. This is going to be
A steel building,
the cheapest thing is a steel building on a slab.
Yep.
We're not getting an architecturally designed building like maybe the town has there on Pleasant Street. That's not what we're going for. We want to do this as to be a basic box with some overhead doors so we can get in one end of it, some storage room for parts and materials, and workbench where the guys can actually look after the equipment that we need to service and repair and maintain, so that it prolongs the life of it, so that it actually works when it comes time to use it.
Yeah, and I have no problem. See, I don't think, if I may, Mr. Chair, that I don't think the general public, I can tell them when we got sidewalks out there and so on, but if on the wall, or there's a brochure there they can through, I mean, there's a lot of sidewalks that we maintain, a lot of grass, you know, the recreational fields, et cetera, on the list goes. We have no place to put that. I can explain that to the one person that asked me that day. The next day somebody else may ask me. I get to, so when Trevor brings forward, you know, like public information, I don't really, they can sit there and say, oh, well, you don't need it. No, I know what we need. I voted on it and I support it. Now, I really don't, I wouldn't say I don't care what they think. They don't have an understanding of what we're doing right now. Derek has a lot of equipment. The CAO has a lot of stuff to look after. I believe if you put this out to the public, in a meeting form, give them the information. The same as when we're gonna build a sidewalk. You bring those people in, show them these are what we have, this is what we can do for you. The same way there. Show them all the machinery that we have lined up. And gentlemen, this is what we park outdoors, and this is what they get into when it's freezing snow out, et cetera, et cetera. This is why we need a building of 6,000 square feet. And, you know, don't even need to give them a figure as far as I'm concerned. This is what the municipality, you need.
The figures are everything. You were
Yes.
all given 2 weeks ago.
Yep.
That information, let's go.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, perhaps public hearing wasn't the appropriate word, but I think a public information session, for the reasons Councillor Anthony has outlined, would be most useful. I didn't support the capital plan based on the fact that we had that much money in the budget for that project. So again, it's about scale. All these types of things. So I think we do need that. And Councillor Anthony did identify that many people aren't aware of it. I think that's a problem. So maybe with the understanding that would be a public information session, as he's indicated, I'd have that motion stand.
Okay, I agree. I think most councillors, it's in our 5-year strategic plan, agree that our guys have no place to work on a rainy day. We have no place to service equipment. Our equipment's outdoors. I think we're in favor of a building. I'm in favor of a building. I'll go on record as that. I do think, though, that the public has a right to know what we're planning on in a building. I have no issue with that. I'm on the record too, I guess, as a CGLS today, saying that they would have that information. It's on the website, but I also think that we will post a notice and say, this is what we plan on spending for the building. This is why we think we need the building. I don't want us to get behind in the building. I want us to stay in front of the building with the public. I mean, people seen this equipment here and automatically thought that we were building a building. So, and rightly so. I mean, so I think the public does have a right to know where we're going and et cetera. My will is not changed to move forward with the building. I do think that we will, personally, I want to be transparent with it, that's all. I don't know yet, Trevor, if it's time for the public meeting, because we haven't got that far yet to make a decision on the building, but maybe it is. That's for you guys. There's a motion on the floor, and you guys will vote on that in a minute, when or whatever you think the timing would be. So.
And there's no time on that.
Okay.
It'll be
Okay. Any further discussion on the motion? Question being called. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Contrary, nay. Motion carried. Appointment to Acadian Skies and Mi'kmaq Land Stewardship Council. There was a little mix-up in the emails, and I think Deputy Warden was interested. Councillor Cunningham, John Gerard, and myself were going to attend that meeting. We had a preliminary meeting this morning and kind of did some of the groundwork. There will be 2 representatives from each council, and when I say each council, I mean Clare, Argyle, and Yarmouth Municipality. 2 from Bonton, and 1 from First Nations. You can send as many as you want, and they do not have to be councillors. So I guess your job tonight, if you want to do it, or you want to discuss it a bit further, is who do you want to appoint to sit on that committee, that council, I should call it. So, John?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I really would like to know their mandate and what they plan to accomplish in this committee. I'm really sorry that this meeting is not going to be taking place tomorrow, because I had moved aside a lot of things in my schedule to attend this, and unfortunately I found out later today that meeting has been either postponed or canceled. I think it's important that myself as the chairman of YASTA attend. However, I'm very busy with that committee, and I'm not saying that it's gonna be a waste of my time, but I really like to know that their mandate and stuff, and maybe we could, move this to the committee of the whole for more discussion, since, we're running a little bit later than usual on this evening.
So I don't need a motion. Is that the wish of council that we discuss this and we'll appoint some members to the committee? Not tonight, but there's a few things, John, I have to talk to you about anyway from the Yasta side of that. So I think it's wise that we let that set for the night. Okay.
Is there any information in regards to their mandate and stuff in writing, or is it, that's what I'm looking for? And also for Yas to be involved, I have to get direction from the board themselves to be involved, and it's very important that I don't go and act on Yas's behalf when really I don't have the board's support on that. And it's not that I don't want, maybe I will go there as a counselor instead, and I have to be very clear on that. I don't want to mix one with the other and give them the impression that I'm there as Yasta's appointed representative or the council's appointed representative. I got to be very clear on that, because I may have different feelings on the board perspective than I do on our council's perspective, because I take direction from my board, and I also take direction if I'm appointed through council, different through your perspective. So I got to be very careful with that.
I just wanted to reiterate, having a one-pager, I have a couple of ideas for community members that might want to take a role there. So if we could have, get a one-pager and something we can forward out. And I guess to ask, is council willing to have maybe at least one of those positions be a community member?
So the consensus is that we will not make a decision on that tonight, that we will, in the first of the new year, we'll work on that. Okay. New business. You've had a chance to review the development report for November. Somebody wish to make a motion to accept that? Councillor Churchill?
Accept the November development report?
All in favor, say aye. Contrary, nay. Thank you. You have an email there from UNSM concerning there will be a conference or a seminar, a workshop, I guess they're calling it, in April in Truro. I think when I read it, if memory serves me right, without opening it up again. Do you, on tree cutting, etc., do you wish to send someone to that, or anybody want to go to that? I see they've done a lot of work in our area with tree trimming. I don't know if it's a big issue with us as much as some of the other municipalities, but anyway, for your information, I'll leave that with you for tonight. 6.3 is email from you on a Local Prosperity New Economics for Rural Canada Conference, which will be taking place in Annapolis. Maybe I got the dates wrong. One of these is April and one of these is... Anyway. Yeah. Okay, then I'm wrong. When was the vegetation one? It doesn't matter, I guess. I have no interest in going to Truro. Okay, sorry. So, it's there if... you guys want to think about it, and next meeting bring it forth. 6.4, John.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. And first, this was not originally on a regular council agenda, and I appreciate council allowing me to put this on there. As you all well know, we've had a lot of issues out in the Golden Forest Road in regards to a culvert, and I received a call from a resident here a couple days ago saying that the land was being flooded and backed up with water because the water flow is so restricted. And since we had the heavy rains and stuff, I went out and took a few pictures. And if you look in the first picture and you look about in the middle of it, you're going to see a sign there that it says danger. That sign there is up on the bank of the side of the stream, and the water right now level is about 15 feet higher on one side of this culvert than it is on the other. If you look in the second picture, it's pretty well the same thing. The third picture is a picture of someone's camp. The water, as you can see, is at least 15 feet higher than it should be. Those trees that are just in front there is, if I walked out there, I would be over my head. The water's really raised substantially, and it's a couple kilometers up the stream bed, and people are getting really concerned. I know we as a council cannot do anything because that's not in our purview, and unfortunately this did not happen when we had our meeting with our MLA on the 8th of December. So I would like to make a motion to forward these pictures to our MLA and council's concerns over the issue of this culvert, and I guess also in that motion that we ask the MLA when the timeline is predicted to be to repair this culvert. The big problem with this culvert is there's also people living full-time on the opposite side of it, so if the culvert's taking out, these people are going to be left stranded. This is a big issue, and we're having more rain tonight. I don't know if this water is going to be going over the top of this quote-unquote roadway / pipe. It's becoming quite a concern up in that area, and this person here has 25 acres. Right now he only has about 2 where his camp is sitting, and I was standing right on his camp. So therefore I make that a motion.
Thank you, Councillor. You have a motion. Do we have a seconder for that motion? Seconded by Councillor Cunningham. Any discussion? The motion is to send a letter to the MLA?
Correct.
Okay. Question being called on the motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, nay. Motion carried. Thank you, gentlemen. Sure.
Absolutely, they're on our website.
Okay, you have your committee reports. I think if there's no questions, 7.1 is canceled, right, John?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Do you have anything else to add to that?
I do have one more thing. We're also, the PAC in the next few months is going to be working on another development agreement with the Brenton Community Wind Project. It's going to include a ComFit program that is going to be putting up a 1.99 megawatt tower in the Brenton area. The development agreement is currently being worked on by staff, and just be aware that this will be coming forward in the next couple months. Not couple months, but 3 or 4 months, I'm sure. The guy from Scotian Windfields dropped me off some of these little reader cards, so I'll just leave them here at the front desk, and you all can hear that. One thing that I did ask, and I thought I knew the answer to, and I didn't, is 1.99 megawatts equals 680 homes, and all the power produced from this wind turbine ComFit program is going to be consumed locally in the area. It's a win-win situation for the municipality, and just council should be aware that this will be coming forward.
Thank you. You have your other reports there. So we'll move down to number 8 on the agenda, and that would be recommendations from in camera. So, we had one, didn't we? Yeah, okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Councillor.
I move that the municipality of the District of Yarmouth provide $2,500 this fiscal year to facilitate a bid for the Canadian Mixed Curling Championship. Additional funds will be supplied contingent on receiving the bid.
Thank you both, councillors. Motion and seconded. Any discussion? Question being called. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Contrary, nay. Motion carried. I don't think we had any other. I'm sorry. Okay. Yeah. Good. CA is going to give us a quick report on the course that him and the development officer took.
Yeah, just we did attend a workshop in Halifax on December 9th, dealing effectively with difficult people. It was put on by Chief Training Center. The instructor was a professor from Dalhousie University. The basic outline of the course was, just bear with me for a second, I'm just trying to find the right session here. The workshop analyzed what is happening in exchanges between people and demonstrate how people can adapt their strategies to bring about more productive conversations. with others. The effective intervention styles was explored in relation to how one relates to others. Participants also learn how to change their interactions with people in order to influence their behavior, resulting in more positive outcomes. The session was attended by approximately 40 people, 40 individuals from different walks of life, from different organizations, ranging probably from government to legal firms, private businesses, and others. Through discussions, case studies, and other exercises, various characteristics and intervention styles were examined and worked on in a workshop atmosphere with a focus on identifying issues, how to most effectively approach and resolve them in a calm and non-confrontational manner, hopefully resulting in more positive outcomes for all involved. And we found this workshop to be quite interesting and beneficial, and positive learning experience.
Thank you. And on hearing that, the motion for adjournment is in order. All in favor? Thank you, gentlemen. It's been a little long. You never know when you get into one of these, but thank you.